Japan is known for its order, its discipline, and its technological marvels. Yet behind this polished exterior lies a legal system that quietly enforces one of the world's most severe punishments, the death penalty. In a time when most developed nations have abandoned capital punishment, Japan remains steadfast, a country where secrecy and authority intertwine with life and death. Today, we explore the grim reality of Japan's death row, the lives of those who face it, and the system that continues to uphold it against global trends. Japan is one of only a handful of developed countries that still implement the death penalty. Alongside the United States, it stands as an outlier in a world increasingly moving toward abolition. But there's a key difference. While the US system is publicly debated and varies from state to state, Japan's approach is centralized and shrouded in secrecy. The methods, the timing, even the identities of those awaiting execution are often hidden. Prisoners are kept in solitary confinement for years, sometimes decades, with minimal contact with the outside world. This secrecy is not accidental, it is built into the very design of the system. Consider the case of Tami Hiroto, convicted of multiple murders. He has spent 14 years on death row. His story is not unique, but it highlights the harsh reality of life in Japan's penal system. Inmates like him live in prolonged uncertainty. The lack of transparency about execution dates, combined with long periods of isolation, imposes a psychological toll that is unimaginable to most outside the system. He, along with many others, was given a life sentence with the possibility of parole. Yet they remain incarcerated without parole hearings being scheduled, keeping them in perpetual uncertainty. This deliberate ambiguity serves to heighten the prisoner's anxiety, ensuring they never truly know when their sentence will be carried out. They live in a constant state of preparedness for an imminent execution that may or may not come. Such prolonged isolation is widely recognized as a form of mental torture. It strips individuals of their sense of time and normalcy, leaving them in a perpetual state of heightened anxiety. The absence of routine and the constant pressure of an uncertain fate can lead to severe psychological distress. Family visits are limited. The outside world often forgets them. The wait itself becomes a form of punishment. The psychological impact of waiting for execution, sometimes for over a decade, is profound. It's a punishment that extends far beyond the act itself, a slow, creeping form of torment. Unlike the US, where debates around race, class, and the morality of execution are central, Japan's society is more homogeneous, and the government maintains strong public support for capital punishment. Polls consistently show that a majority of citizens endorse the death penalty. They believe it necessary for justice and deterrence. Yet this support is shaped by a system that rarely questions itself. Let's analyze the inner workings of this system. First, we must understand how prisoners arrive on death row. In Japan, the criteria for a death sentence is straightforward. Crimes are categorized into two groups: chokinkishi, which includes crimes against life, and crimes against property. For crimes against life, such as murder, treason, and kidnapping, the death penalty can be imposed. Crimes against property carry a maximum sentence of 20 years. If a crime involves both categories, the court has the discretion to determine the appropriate punishment. Capital punishment is rare, accounting for about 1% of all sentences. However, once a death sentence is handed down, the process becomes swift and final. There is no provision for appeals based on the grounds of punishment severity. Only procedural errors in the trial can be challenged. Once a death sentence is confirmed, the prisoner is typically transferred to one of Japan's 5 prisons, specializing in death row inmates. These prisons are notorious for their strict regimen and secluded environment. Inmates spend 23 hours a day in solitary confinement, with minimal interaction with prison personnel. Communication with the outside world is strictly controlled, allowing only for a few carefully monitored visits from family members and attorneys. The psychological toll of this isolation is immense, contributing to the dehumanizing effects of death row. Now, let's delve into the process of execution. Japan employs a variety of methods, including hanging, lethal injection, and the firing squad. The method used is often kept secret until the moment of execution. This secrecy adds to the psychological trauma of the condemned, who never know exactly how and when their punishment will be carried out. Executions are typically carried out between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m., ensuring the condemned will not suffer during the night. The reason behind this is rooted in tradition and practicality. It reflects a cultural sensitivity towards avoiding nighttime disturbances, and also provides a time frame that allows for procedural checks and the involvement of witnesses, usually a small group of officials. The secrecy surrounding the method and timing is not arbitrary. It is part of a larger system designed to limit disruption and maintain control. The abruptness of the process is meant to minimize psychological distress, although this claim is countered by the very nature of the punishment. Death by hanging is the most common method in Japan. It is believed to be the most humane and certain method of execution. This belief is based on the idea that death by hanging is quick, and that any physical and psychological suffering is minimal. However, this assumption is not universally accepted, and there is ongoing debate regarding the potential for prolonged suffering during executions by hanging. Lethal injection and the firing squad are considered alternative methods for particularly heinous crimes. The decision to use these methods is at the discretion of the government and is often influenced by public opinion and the nature of the crime. The secrecy surrounding these executions has been justified on the grounds of public order and decency. Authorities argue that publicizing the details of executions could lead to unrest and disorder, undermining the deterrent effect of capital punishment. Additionally, the sudden nature of executions is seen as a way to prevent the condemned from having the opportunity to evade justice. However, critics argue that this secrecy serves to conceal the realities of capital punishment and prevents public scrutiny of a state-sanctioned practice that results in the irreversible taking of a life. The role of the judiciary in maintaining this system is crucial. Judges in Japan play a pivotal role in upholding the death penalty. Their decisions directly impact whether an individual will receive the death sentence. Japanese judges are known for their impartiality and commitment to following the law. They are appointed for life, ensuring they are not influenced by public pressure or political considerations. This independence is seen as a safeguard against arbitrary or unjust application of the death penalty. However, this same independence can also be seen as a barrier to reform. As long as the judicial system upholds the status quo, abolishing the death penalty becomes more challenging. Moreover, the judiciary as historical deference to the government's interpretation of the law has contributed to the longevity of the death penalty in Japan. Crucially, the Japanese legal system operates within a framework that gives the government significant powers. This authority is rooted in the Constitution of Japan. Enacted after World War II, the Constitution was designed to limit the potential for another authoritarian regime. Consequently, many of the civil liberties found in other modern democracies, such as freedom of speech and assembly, are either weakly protected or narrowly defined, leaving them open to government restriction. This context allows the government to advocate for and implement policies like the death penalty with fewer constraints. Further, Japan's legal system is characterized by a strong emphasis on order and efficiency. This is reflected in its legal procedures, which prioritize finality and the perceived greater good over individual rights. The efficiency of the justice system is highly valued, and delays and appeals are often seen as impediments to this efficiency. This cultural context contributes to the swiftness with which death sentences are carried out once they are finalized. The issue of transparency further underscores the complexities of Japan's legal system. A lack of transparency in sentencing and execution practices raises concerns about the fair and equitable application of the law. However, the Japanese government's approach to transparency is shaped by a desire to maintain social order and stability. The secrecy surrounding execution methods and timings is justified on the basis of preventing disorder and ensuring the effectiveness of capital punishment as a deterrent. Similarly, the absence of televised trials is seen as a way to protect the dignity of the court and prevent sensationalism. However, this lack of transparency limits public scrutiny of the justice system and makes it difficult to assess whether the death penalty is being applied fairly and judiciously. Japan's stance on the death penalty reveals a deeper cultural complexity. The country's homogeneous society and strong sense of collective identity play a role in shaping attitudes towards capital punishment. Furthermore, the deference to authority and the emphasis on social harmony are deeply ingrained cultural values that influence the acceptance of the death penalty. Moreover, the Japanese legal system's historical development has been significantly impacted by its post-World War II context. The Constitution's focus on order and stability, coupled with the weak protection of civil liberties, has created a legal landscape that allows for the continuation of capital punishment. As we conclude our exploration of Japan's legal system, it's important to recognize the tension between tradition, societal values, and evolving global standards. Japan's unwavering stance on the death penalty amidst global abolition efforts highlights this tension. The system's design, which emphasizes efficiency, order, and deference to authority, has allowed the death penalty to persist. However, the system's secrecy and lack of transparency raise concerns about fairness and individual rights. As Japan navigates its place in an increasingly globalized world, the question remains whether its legal traditions will evolve to address these challenges. The death penalty in Japan is not merely a legal institution, it's a reflection of deep-rooted cultural values and historical circumstances. Its continuation reflects a society's commitment to order, tradition, and retribution. Yet in an era where global norms are shifting and individual rights are increasingly emphasized, Japan's legal system stands as a reminder of the complexities inherent in balancing tradition with progress. Thank you for watching this episode. If you found it insightful, please consider subscribing and sharing it with others. Your engagement helps us continue producing informative content on global legal systems. Stay tuned for more.